estimates that roughly 90% of the iPhone comes from outside the U.S. You think that's about right?
Yeah, sounds about right. I know it's a lot. I mean, very little of it comes from inside the U.S. these days. I mean, they have other products that are made here, like the Mac Pro, but as far as the iPhone goes, it's mostly abroad. Yeah.
And I don't know how much that really is different than the component breakdown in the past. Maybe in like the early '90s, mid '90s for standard consumer tech stuff. But one of the major changes that Apple underwent, really with Tim Cook, was this idea of changing from having their own in-house manufacturing, their own in-house warehouses, company-owned, to moving to this contract manufacturing type relationship.
Yeah, they did that. I think in the late '90s or so. I mean, they used to make Macs in the U.S. and California, and you know, they just realized that it was just way too expensive, and it was just a lot of it's also the kind of engineering talent and manufacturing talent you can get now, because of course, a lot of people have criticized that they won't bring those jobs back to the U.S., but Apple's defense nowadays it's not just about low cost labor. It's also about like you don't have as many mid level manufacturing engineers available in the U.S. anymore, just because as an economy we don't have as many of those types of jobs. Like that's not the type of education that we focus on anymore. And there's like a ton of that over there. So including the lower cost labor, they have more people that are within the specific skill sets that they need to like ramp these manufacturing. I mean, I think a long time ago they said like you could fit, every single manufacturing engineer within that they would need in like baseball stadium, but they like in the country, like you can fit all, that's just how many there are now. But over in China and Foxconn's, they can get hundreds of thousands of engineers within a couple of hours if they need them to like make some change or, do, tweak some process or so, there's a lot of sides to the story why they do it like that.
And this pivot, this decision by the business to go to this contract manufacturing relationship, it was really something that Tim Cook pushed aggressively. For all the praise that Steve Jobs gets as this design, branding, user experience mastermind, this is where Tim Cook's expertise really is in operational efficiency and just running a business extremely well from a supply chain point of view. And so he has really pushed the business to where they are now, where they rely heavily on Foxconn and Pegatron, to name two, as these contract manufacturers. And listeners, just so you have an idea of, if you don't know what this term means, basically Apple doesn't own any of the facilities where iPhones are being assembled. Instead,
well, they own. Let me just add in that they own a bunch of the manufacturing tooling and the equipment. So, like, what a lot of their capital expenditures these days are, they buy the actual infrastructure and the gear, and then they put that inside of the facilities that they don't own. So they kind of own a lot of the stuff, and then Foxconn owns the factory, and then they hire the people, and then they operate that stuff. So, I mean, their capex is like 10 million a year now, which is insane, and majority of that goes to like this product tooling that sits in Asia inside of factory facilities. So
yeah, I'm glad you hopped in and clarified there. But largely they're paying these manufacturers to put together their devices and then ship them over, right?
Right.
And so Foxconn is the name that you will hear the most. And when you hear that name, you often think of Foxconn City, which is the company's largest manufacturing plant. And that's in Shenzhen, China. And so chances are, if you're holding an iPhone, if you're listening to this episode on an iPhone, it was put together in China. That on that one campus alone, and I say campus, I mean that's kind of the vibe that you get looking around. If you ever see pictures of this setup, it's incredible. But they have hundreds of thousands of employees working there. It's over a square mile. I mean, they have dorms for employees, its own shopping center. I think they have their own cable network there. And so the executives there liken it to this college experience. I think it's kind of a stretch. But, you have people working like 12-hour days, 6 days a week, putting together iPhones. But that one Foxconn City location is just one of the 12 that the company has in China. And actually, folks following tech might have heard earlier this week, Foxconn announced it automated 60,000 jobs in one of its factories. So kind of going back to that idea of providing some of the tooling, I'm sure Apple had something to do with that.
Yeah, I wonder if they helped fund some of that. If they're going to be using those robots primarily for iPhone production, it would make sense if Apple helped them pay for some of that.
Yeah, we don't have firm details on that, but it wouldn't be a stretch by any means.
Right.
More recently, Apple added Pegatron, that's a name I mentioned earlier, as another contract manufacturer. And I think this was maybe like 2012 or so, 2013. And I think there were two big reasons for this. One of them was kind of a diversification to downplay the risk of relying solely on one contract manufacturer so heavily like Foxconn. And I think maybe another one was in a response to the company's kind of increasingly complex, fragmented product offering. They wanted to have that split among a couple different suppliers just because of some of the specialization required to produce the different sizes and models and form factors. So yeah, if you're listening to the show on an iPhone, chances are it started out in a Foxconn or Pegatron factory, most likely in China. And just, I think, a testament to the growth and diversification strategy among their contract manufacturers. Recently, they've added another Taiwan-based company to this list, Winstrom. So just another thing to kind of keep an eye out for.